Greetings, my name is Michael Miller. This is the Michael Miller trademark training video out to you because you're watching. Thank you and welcome. It's meant for Michael Miller Pilates licensed affiliates, the Core New Core, and anyone interested in surviving and thriving as a Pilates instructor. So, 1, 2, 3. 3 things today. And the title of the first one is Demonstrating ... More please. And as an instructor, if you demonstrate everything to your student in the course of an hour, you get half of that time working out while they watch. And I think it has its own trade-offs, because demonstrating something as a movement can happen in a few seconds and you can get something happening. And yet, in doing the demonstration, someone watches what you're after in your body and has an immediate distance from it, distinction of doing it, from the way you do it to the way they do it. And much better that they have their own sense of doing it from the inside out without a role comparison. And a hard one to make at that. So demonstrating. And mostly my mind right there was in the presence of a student, teaching them something new and feeling the inclination to just want to demonstrate. But that's visual, right? There's tactile, there's verbal, a couple others I'm probably forgetting, but the ways that we absorb information, auditory, our senses. I'm not, well, you might teach by smell if you were trying to enhance someone's imagination about inhaling, especially through the nose. All of this talk about demonstration is coming from a Facebook post of a fellow instructor named Kipling that is demonstrating her shoulders on the pedipole. Well, actually, I said it wrong. Actually, the correct thing to say is, to me, she was demonstrating classical exercises. She was demonstrating movement on the pedipole, which sometimes is spelled P-O-L-E for the pole that it is, and I think more originally P-U-L-L as in the pole down on the springs. But the movement was just the shoulders and some sense of the arms, with the obvious pedipole and crossbar you couldn't see, but the springs that would come into view and then go out. The best part about it was not just see it, well, oh man, there's so much in it. There's so much revelation of musculature in movement, skeleton in movement, body in movement. And discern the difference between rotation through the whole axis, is how I would talk about it, versus torsion in the axis, where the rotation reverses. And then way more to my point about the levels of it demonstrating that I'm trying to acknowledge, is that in this little video clip, I got to see shoulders rolling forward to make a press down of the arms, an expansion of the angle between the forearm and the bicep. And then I got to see where that didn't happen and the same thing happened, right? So one way, then another. And then the second way was repeated 2 more times. So to me, it was like, recognize the difference in this, and then this really is the way you want to do it. All visual, all without, I mean, there were words attached to the video, and I didn't even see the whole video until I watched it a second time. But that point about showing the distinction visually between rolling your shoulders over to make extension with your arms is different than holding your shoulders in place and making the same effort. Visually, it's this. So it's total eye candy, and all of that is about observing, and that there's something to observe. And for me, I would say, observe the ideal of the rotation through the axis. Observe the body's ability to independently control rotation out the arms, and either match in direction of rotation or oppose in torsion. And not only from it, if we're talking the shoulders, right, that the torsion going one way can oppose at the elbow and switch again at the wrist. So to me, what was there in this video clip was a demonstration, and so it's visual, all right? And to me, it was also conceptual because you could observe differentiation. And in so far as you could actually see the difference, right? It makes that Pilates student want to go explore that right away to feel the difference. Because, of course, there is one. And, of course, that is all about how you engage your body. But it's instructive in that it shows the difference, and in seeing the difference, it's revelational in, first of all, knowing that there's a difference, and then being able to see the difference, and hopefully then go explore and find the feeling of the difference. And in that it's conceptual. See, it's transferable. And so as an instructor, to survive as a Pilates instructor, right, be aware of the levels at which your demonstration can be presented and taken. And it's so great to see something, I think, so pure and abstract and yet so clear and concise and graspable. And inspiring to just have that kind of control when one is engaged in either that effort on the pedal pole or anywhere out in space. More, please. Number two is the fear of being boring. And two separate anecdotes from two perspectives about teachers being afraid of being boring. And one is trainees being asked to teach the same set of exercises, these 3 exercises, asked to teach them the same way, and do the exercises through in order 3 times. And so I was amazed at how different not only each pass through the instructions were, but each statement in an exercise was also different. And both students, trainees, when asked, well, why do you do that? To me, they both said the same thing, different from each other, but they didn't want to be boring. They're afraid of being boring. And so they were changing things up and out of fear of being boring. The other instructor, actually not a trainee, but an instructor, came from a point of view where she didn't want to be bored. And so the whole thing, the whole experience, whether it was a class or a private, was part of her personal journey as an instructor, and it would go wherever her fancy took her. Which at some level I completely understand and I agree with, and at another level, which has to do with the MMP point of view, that Pilates has an essence of its own, and that the choreography has structure to it, and that in your whimsical approach to what you do with Pilates, you either resonate with the original song or you don't. And how well you do or what you do in terms of covering the song of Pilates, it has to do with how well you know the song. So the fear of being boring, right, and the not wanting to be bored can be self-indulgent. To the point that it doesn't matter. You know, take the attitude that it doesn't matter, right? And that's one point of view, and I'm encouraging you to consider one in which what is represented in the original work is consistent with what you creatively improv off of. And there's a whole large culture, population out there of Pilates passion and awareness that just is unaware that it matters. You know, they're unaware of the possibility of looking at it in an ideal way. And the fact that it might not matter could be wishful thinking. That's what I think got me to self-indulgent. You know, you can say, well, yeah, it's all a device, but pretty much it's about me and what I do, and that's true, sadly and inescapably. But to the extent that it's all about you and what you do, and then what you choose to do and how you do it, from within the MMP point of view, resonates or it doesn't with essence that's already established. So willingness to even entertain this point of view or acknowledge it makes me think of the current commercial where one sister comes to visit another sister trying to sell her insurance while the sister is on the bicycle, you know, exercise bicycle, a stationary bike, looking at her phone, and the pace of the bike is easily lackadaisical, and she doesn't want to hear anything that her sister has to say. And she ends up saying, cycling is my passion. So with that kind of humor, everyone, to some extent or another, takes Pilates the same way. You know. So let me go on to come back and finish what I was saying about boring. Number 3, the embodiment of what? Because why am I saying that? Well, I say that embodiment is the ultimate authority, right? And I've said it for a long time, and from within the perspective of MMP, the embodiment I'm talking about is what you can actually observe as the complete coordination of body, mind, and spirit. And that's what those letters mean after the title. CCBMS is complete coordination, body, mind, spirit. And so when it's embodiment, and you're actually saying or purporting, this is just a point of view. a lot of different point of views about Pilates, right? In this point of view, there's embodiment involved or possible that we reach for and that we achieve to some extent at any moment in time, possibly, and yet the depth of the degree to which we achieve it, how far we can actually go into the depths of reaching for complete coordination of body, mind, and spirit. You know, the evidence, the experience is you can't go there forever, and you can't choose how deep you go and just stay there forever. So from that point of view, that embodiment is the definition of Pilates that's in Joe's book. You know, with the unneeded additive that we're talking, MMP is talking about a state of being in the body, and a state of being in the body in the moment of the doing is my cliche. But that means it's talking about the moment, and that this definition of Joe's is dynamic and alive, and it's what you reach for as an experience in the pursuit of the choreography. And so how could that ever be boring? The Pilates instructor stands with their student at the precipice of their existence, insofar as their capacities of a human being, of being, thinking, and observing. And this is just the MMP point of view of how Joe means body, mind, and spirit. But in that, right, in looking at that and understanding that observing is a capacity that connects you to the universe faster than light, that makes your presence as a human being universal. And to empower someone's capacity to participate in that experience by the conditioning that they do, that develops their strength and flexibility and coordination and everything else that comes along with the practice of the pattern, the routine, the work. And so that your delivery as an instructor is a polished poem that you work on, you know this, all the time. Whatever your delivery is and whatever you explain or have to say over and over again, whether it's to kids or friends or coworkers, the way in which you respond becomes polished to allow you to say as much as you can with the words that you choose to use. And in being an instructor, a lot of it, not all of it, is the words that you choose and how you use them and how loud you use them and when you use them and what in order you put them in and what those words come out as. Meaning, does it come out as an explanation or does it come out as an instruction? And you know this because we've said it 1,000 times before. The difference between teaching and instructing is that when you teach, you ask a person to think. And when you instruct, you ask a person to do. And the target as a Pilates instructor is to ask a person, a student, a class, a school, a company, a studio, a union, to do if you're instructing. And all that explanation stuff is outside the scope necessarily of having anything to do with being the instructor that you're capable of being. And some of my students most of my students don't make a big deal out of what they're aware of that others aren't, because that wouldn't help. You participate in making money as an instructor. That's part of the balancing of things you have to manage on your own. But ask for a lot more than you ever dreamt possible, really. Because the value of what CT and MMP represent, when no one else understands it, and yet all of a sudden, there's some recognition or acknowledgement of, yeah, gosh, you're sort of right on that. And now I'm going to make the most of possible because, or make of it whatever I want. See, there's two. Being a Michael Miller Pilates licensed affiliate is an official way for you to achieve a distinction between everybody else that will come to offer that as part of what they do, that within the limits of legal restriction won't be able to claim the trademark for the understanding of either, for the identification of, or understanding, really is the word I mean, core nutension and Michael Miller Pilates instructor. So work on your delivery and don't be afraid to say the same thing over and over again if it gets a result that you like, especially if the way you say it is asking for a deeper engagement in what you're cueing for. Expand the essence of what you say, not the content of what you say. And I'm saying that because you don't want your student to have to think more than they need to in order to chase the ball, in order to follow instruction. Right? Don't let the mind get in the way. So what I just said in that way, I would also say, let your instruction be nuanced, your demonstration even, be nuanced, especially if you're doing something to share across social media. You know, the example of Kipling on the pedal pole is so rich. It's so meaty. In the content of what you see, and in the structure of what you see, and in the comparison of what you observe, right? You could hold that up at a phone to somebody that's standing at a pedal pole and say, imagine this is your body, right? And now think about shoulders forward and push down, and think about holding shoulders back and push down. Heck, play it while they're trying to do it. So demonstration can be at different levels and have different nuances to them. And embodiment of what was my third thing, my last thing, and that's the complete coordination of body, mind, and spirit as Joe's definition, as a hoped for association to whatever the embodiment is I'm talking about. And for MMP, I know that's just one view out of thousands upon thousands, but in MMP, the view is that the experience that you're after, that we're after, that I'm after, as a student and as a teacher, as an instructor, is this experience that it's possible for the human being to feel, to have, to go through, to capture for a moment in time, because As I say, you can't just dive as deep as you want and then swim along for as long as you want and then just choose to go back up. Concentration, paying attention, observing all that you can from the sensation coming into your body. And so why is that the experience? I don't know. But I can attest to it from my own experience, from my own sensation. And I've got a career of talking about this point of view, and a whole lot of that has been dealing with other people and as an instructor. If you're waiting for the math and science, then there's an opportunity for you to go make the math and science. Because surely the person that, I've got people that I've talked to and are working on an equation for core tension, but I don't know that that's going to come about in time for me to make use of it as an instructor. And that's the same thing I say to you. You can't pick your fans, and you can't pick when they show up, or how fast or how many or any of that, right? All you can do is play the music. And over the last 862 days, every weekday I've made an attempt to play the music that empowers you to claim this point of view as something that you have control of. Life can't live forever. Read between the lines, see behind the curtain, add two and two, direct your mind, direct your thinking. Geist.